Hello and welcome. My name's Ben Hales with Transform My Poker, and today's theme is how do you analyze a hand? So you remember my 8 inches from the previous video? Today we're going to give you some graphic demonstration of how. No, we're not going to do that. That's a whole different type of video. This one's about poker, and we are going to be doing some analyzing. And actually, on a serious note, this is going to be really, really useful. So stay tuned. You're going to learn a lot about hand analysis in this video. The problem is that people don't analyze hands properly. And after watching this video, you're not going to be one of these people, okay? But this is what I'm talking about. You're listening to someone who is telling you a poker story, and it starts like this. So I had some hand and this guy raised. And already this is a crazy, meaningless situation. We can't begin to answer whatever this guy's question is going to be because we haven't got the background information that we need. We need some structure. We need to fill in some missing blanks. Now, you're probably already thinking, yeah, I need to know what my stack size was or what position the raiser was in. And there are a list of things you need to know. It's very scientific. You can write them down and you can follow each element of the hand. And I used that phrase, elements of a hand, not arbitrarily. You may know that Harrington and Holden Part 1 is the best-selling book of all time. Not best-selling book, but the best-selling poker book of all time. In the chapter, Harrington outlines a list of things you should be thinking about. I've actually abridged them slightly into 8 checkpoints, and I'm going to give you these now, okay? So first up, we're going to want to know what is the type of situation we're in. What game are we playing? Is it a multi-tournament on level 6 with the blinds at X and X? Is it a cash game? What's going on? Is it just before the bubble in a tournament? Is it a sit and go with 4 players left? You know, define the situation that you're in. This, in many ways, is the umbrella around everything else. If it's a cash game, you can kind of skip it. But if it's not, it's a really, really important part of the hand. 2, stack sizes. You need to know the effective stack size. So what is relevant to you? What is the effective stack size? If you don't know that number, that's a massive gain you can make to your poker game right now. Make sure at the start of every hand, you know the effective stack size, okay? 3rd, opponent information. You're going to want to know as much as you can about your opponents. So instead of starting the story, so this guy raised with, you should be saying, so the player who I define as tight aggressive raised from early position with a range that I estimate was about 4%. That's the type of detail that you need when you're telling a story and analyzing the hand, okay? So you need opponent information, everything that's relevant. You need to know what's gone on previously. So yes, he did raise from early position and then the next guy folded, etc., etc. So what has taken place in the hand? And then information regarding who is sat behind you, so after, so anticipating what can happen on the other side after your action. So you can analyze a little bit about that. So if there's a really loose aggressive player who raises and re-raises willy-nilly sat on the button behind you, that's important information. 6th, position, just generally, you need to know whether you have relative position on each of your opponents. So after the flop, are you going to be in or out of position? And this is something that is immediately obvious to any experienced players and less obvious to people with less experience. But position is a crucial part of any analysis. Number 7 is pot odds, and it's something that gets missed out. very frequently. And it is important. It matters to the mathematics. It matters to whether or not you should take on a gamble. Pot odds matters pre-flop. It matters post-flop. It's a very important part of the game. And finally, for dramatic effect, just as Harrington did, the last thing is the hole card. So what hole cards are you holding? Are you holding ace jack? Now I want to know what the cards are. But first I want to know all that other information, and so should you. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put this into a random hand. Just a random hand. Literally just going to grab my database, put one up there, and go through those 8 points and see if it helps. I did lie slightly. I did pick a hand that I won deliberately because I didn't want to look stupid. That's the only reason. But it doesn't matter what hand I chose. It's simply a hand. All right, you can do this with any hand. Number one situation. It's a 6 max SNG with 4 players remaining. Stack sizes. I have 39 big blinds. I'm the effective stack. I'm the small stack. So it's my stack size that I'm thinking about in terms of, how deep am I? How many chips is it to invest, and how much can I potentially win? Effective stack is extremely important. The cutoff and button have both folded, and the small blind raises into me. The small blind is a loose aggressive player. I'm not sure exactly how loose aggressive, but all his stats look fairly aggressive at the moment. Okay, so both pre-flop and post-flop, he is active, raising and betting a lot. So this could be a range as wide as 100% of his hands, or something certainly over 50%. That completes checkpoint 1, checkpoint 2, stack sizes, checkpoint 3, opponent information, checkpoint 4, what happened pre-flop up to this moment. Okay, we've reached that point. There's nothing to worry about behind us because we are completing the pre-flop action. So checkpoint 5 is covered off. We've mentioned our position. Post-flop, we are now going to have position because although we're on the big blind, the small blind is the only other active player. We're guaranteed to have relative position post-flop, so we can play this hand with more freedom as a result. The only other thing to say is we have wonderful pot odds. It is 2.9 to 1 to call this bet. And of course, I'm going to 3-bet for value with this hand because my opponent's going to call too often and we can get more value. So that's what I choose to do. My opponent calls. And yes, checkpoint 8, I have queen, queen. All right. And that's the kind of, that's how important your hand is. It's an afterthought to everything else. If you can get into the habit of doing all of the important stuff to define the elements of the hand before you even think about your hand, then you're on the right track. You can go into more depth. You can analyze your opponent's range in lots of detail. You can analyze your own range in lots of detail and think about what hands you're 3-betting with. So not just about the queen, queen, but about all the hands that you're going to 3-bet with. That's really useful. And there's a lot of detail I can go into post-flop that I won't do because I don't want to do too much in one video. But I will complete the action for you. So my opponent checks, which I expect him to do with most of his range. I continuation bet for value. And also because I'm probably going to c-bet here with all my range. And I keep the amount modest, half the pot. It's about right. My opponent calls. The turn card is the 7 of hearts. My opponent's range is starting to narrow. He's going to have Jack X, 2 clubs. He may have a 7 or a 3. It doesn't matter if he's got a 7 at this point. I'm committed. So I just need to continue betting. And it's about finding the bet sizes. Do I want to go with an all-in now, 812 into 752? Or do I want to stagger it across the 2 streets? And my decision here would be based mainly on how often do I think he's got a jack. If I think he's got his jack, I'm going to stagger it across the two streets for value. And if I think he's got a drawing hand, I'd be more inclined to bet bigger on the turn. Again, to get more value. So I go with the smaller bet, thinking he's probably got a jack at this point, and he calls off and shows Jack 9, and we win a nice hand. The important thing here is that you take away those 8 points from the video. Good luck with analysing your hands. Thanks very much for listening to me today and putting up with my crude jokes. Don't forget to give the video a Facebook like if you enjoyed it, and add your comments and questions by all means. Thank you. My name's Ben Hales with Transform My Poker.